Welcome to the Power of One. I am super excited to speak with an upcoming author. I cannot wait to share couch time with her when she is sitting with Oprah Winfrey. So don't forget about me when you make it big. Venus Johnson is going to speak about her book, Summer's Secret Keeper. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Miss Melanie. Thank you so much for
You're
having me.
welcome. So let's dive right in. Tell the viewers about the book, why you wrote the book, and did it have any personal meaning?
Just a little quick synopsis about the book. It's about grooming. It's a children's book. I wanted to put this out because I think that children can use this as a tool for where they are right now in case something inappropriate is happening in their life. So they can go to a caretaker or a parent or a caretaker can see the nuances in a child when they're having some dissonances in their lives where we can't usually have those conversations one-on-one. So this book opens up to say, don't force the child to come to you with their story. Allow them the space to come to you.
Now, explain what grooming is. Some people don't know what that means.
Grooming specifically is when, because grooming can happen with two adults. So this isn't just based on children, but grooming is when an individual is being a little too friendly, right? They're giving them a little too much of what so if I go to a babysitter's house, I expect meals to be given to a child. Maybe they can watch a little TV, play their tablet. But if I take my child to a house and it feels like they're in Disney World, that's a little bit too much. That's overcompensating just for a child, and this person has no children, then I have to really sit back and think, because one, my child is going to be thrown off when they come home and they don't have the same access. And also, what are the motives behind what's happening with this child?
So, in your book, the main character, which is a little girl, she is sexually abused.
Yes.
And it's by someone who is known to the family, and which I think that is a key point that you drive home. There are many times when children are sexually abused. It could be someone within the family, it could be a coach, it could be a teacher, but it's usually someone close to them. Explain a little bit about that.
The closeness of that, usually when it comes to perpetrators, they want to constitute themselves inside the family. They want to seem like a trusted person, right? And so, like you said, it could be a plethora of anyone. It could be your next door neighbor. It could be the babysitter. It could be your uncle, your aunt. You never know. But for me personally, I wanted to bring light to female predators more so because we hear predators and we think a specific notion of what that looks like. And so ultimately, I wanted to bring light to a predator could look like anyone. It could be, your mom, it could be your grandmother. So we need to put the light on not just what we think a predator looks like, but generally anyone could be a predator.
When you wrote the book, was there any personal experiences in that book?
So yes, this book is loosely based on my personal experiences. When I was approximately 5 years old, I experienced some trauma similar to what happens in the book. And with that, I lived with it for a long time because I didn't understand at that time that one, it wasn't my fault, and two, that it was something wrong that had happened, right? So it took me almost 25 years to recollect and say, wait a minute, I don't even think that that was supposed to happen. And I lived so long with so much residual trauma that I had to work to heal myself. And then I said, wait, I don't want a bunch of children to grow up and figure out how to deal with that residual trauma. Let's figure out how to deal with it right there where they are. So that's why I put pen to paper.
There are often times when people don't understand that someone, doesn't matter the age, has been sexually abused, but it takes them years and years to actually come forth and tell their story or seek help. What do you say to those people who think that someone's lying because it took them so many years to come forth?
To be honest, that's a great point you make, because now that I think about it, I say, how many people actually knew of this story from when I was a child? And I say only the people who were in the home, right? Because I'm African American, and coming from an African American home, you had to keep the secrets in home. You couldn't tell the business. And so you have to really, really find that patience for people to say, just because they didn't tell you then, they could have had guilt, they could have been in fear, there could have been things that happened within their personal space that they didn't feel comfortable letting that out. So allow them the space to tell their story, to speak their truth.
You were of the public welfare system.
Yes, ma'am.
Speak a little bit about that and tell us a
Um,
little bit about that journey. And was there trauma associated with that journey?
So that journey started upon birth, right? So I was born drug addicted. And
Mm.
from there I went through kinship, DHS, and I was handed off. And I had a lot of internalization about love, right? And wantedness, right? And there was always this feeling of I'm not worthy of love. No one wants me. I can't even have my biological parents don't want me. The people who, DHS said are going to take care of me don't want me. And every home I was placed in, I actually, kind of experienced trauma. So it took me a long time to realize that I didn't need for another human to tell me that they loved me or they appreciated me. I had to start loving me and started to turn to God. And I knew God loved me unconditionally and he was with me through everything. So I knew I had those two balances of saying, you are worth something. Your story means something, and you need to, invest in yourself.
How did you get to that point? Did that happen as at a young age? Because, I think about children who are traumatized. And then I think about the crime that's occurring in our world today, and some of them are young. Is it that some of them were so hurt that they became numb to pain and they're able to hurt others? You know what I mean? At what age did you say to yourself, I'm not going to let what happened to me determine where I'm going to go in life? And does that happen more often than not?
Hurt people, Miss Melanie, right? And so you have to be willing to break those curses, right? And for me, going through so many experiences as a child, I said, when I get of an adult age, and it didn't even take for me to get of adult age, it was in my teens where I started to take care of children and protect them and say, I absolutely don't want them to experience what I experienced, even though those moments made me who I am today. And it really strengthened me and gave me a really strong back. I want to protect children and put them on a pedestal where they know that their voices matter, that they're seen, that they're heard, and that they don't have to go through these things to be a better person in life. Right. And so my thing was to always, put kids on those pedestals to show them that they can be the best version of themselves.
It always, again, amazes me how some people make the decision to follow in what occurred in their childhood, and then some make the decision not to. Just like my father's father, he was abusive and he was an alcoholic, but and he was abusive to his wife, so my dad's mother. But my dad said when he got older and when he got married, he said, I will never lay hands on my wife. But then you have the other situation where you have females and males that probably watch their parents have physical altercations, and then they thought that was the right thing to do. So, did you have a role model saying to you, this is the way you should go, this is what you should do, or you were just that determined to say, this is not how I'm going to live?
Yeah, so I didn't have a stand-in role model. When it came to role models, for me, it was more like television, right? It's like seeing people like RuPaul early on. I think I saw her on TV at like 4.5, right? And she had a talk show, and I couldn't said, who is this woman? She's living her best life. And then I saw people like Oprah, and so seeing them with the same exact complexion as me, let me know that I could be almost anything I wanted, no matter what trauma I went through. I didn't want to be a product of my environment. I didn't want to pity. Oh, you don't have parents. I didn't feel pity for myself. I asked my psych teacher in early infancy classes, what is wrong with me? Why didn't I fall into this? And she said, you're an outlier. That's it. You're an outlier. There's certain people who are going to fall within this, and there's certain people who are going to fall out of that because they are determined to break those cycles.
How long ago did you write the book?
Um,
And when will it be published?
I wrote it during the pandemic while I was teaching at East Vincent Elementary in Chester County. It will be published on May 10th, and it will be available with over 40,000 retailers worldwide.
Okay. All right. And I know you said you were of the welfare system. Do you have family that know that you wrote this book? Support? What are your support systems?
So my support systems come more along my career path, right? Because going through so many traumatic experiences coming up, you kind of tend to shred that off like a snake, like all that extra skin. And so you see that these people don't have your best interest. So you kind of break away from that. So my support system looks like my work life, the people who, my colleagues, right? That's where I put most of my energy in, and my clients, right? They really, as much as I work to support them, they also support me. They say, "You got this. You're going to do this." And I remember writing this book, and my students saying, "Miss Johnson, you're going to write a book? Could you read it?" And I would read it to them because I would have little snippets, and they're like, "Oh, this is going to be good." And it's so ironic to look back 4 years, and these kids are what, in the 11th grade now, and they're going to say, "Wait a minute, that was my teacher at one point." So
Right.
that is very heartwarming.
Okay. Now, going back to the welfare system, did you age out? Did they provide services for you? How did that service end?
That's quite an ironic question. So yeah, I aged out, but I hadn't realized I aged out until I went back to try to get any of my DHS records. That's when I kind of realized I aged out because at 16, I had to kind of emancipate myself. I was getting Social Security because I had a lot of barriers like PTSD. And I was homeless at the time. So I had no way to get like school supplies, uniforms, things like that. And so what I did was I went to Social Security and I said, listen, I understand that I have a guardian, but right now I'm not in a position where they're helping me. So am I able to, do you think I'm responsible enough to make sure that I get to school? And they said, are you going to go to school? I said, I'm going to go to school. And they, kind of emancipated me there.
And school meant college?
No, school was just high school because I'm just 16 at the time.
Oh, that's right. You did say that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so college came later on for me. Ironically, on my senior year, I went through a lot of like physical trauma. So I had my head was split open, my jaw was broke. Had like I just was in the hospital a lot for a 3-month period, and so they kind of dropped me off role because I was already 17. And for me, I was just like, oh, well, what's the point? I don't need to go to school. They kicked me out anyway, and I had been transitioning through so many schools. So in 2010, that's when I kind of went back and got my high school diploma because I was like, I'm more than 3 letters. Not saying there's nothing wrong with the GED because everyone has their paths. But for me, I wanted that high school diploma. I said, I want to do what everyone else is doing. I know I didn't have the same path, but I want to do this. And so in 2010, I went back to school. I actually graduated from South Philadelphia High in 2011. And
Okay.
from there, I accidentally ended up in college.
Uh, It wasn't no accident. That was a good thing. Now, go back. You said you had a broken jaw?
Yes. So when I was 17, just hanging around the wrong crowds, I was getting my hair done one day and the sister of the person who was doing my hair just like started messing with me, and then it just started catapulting into something else, right? So we get into a fist fight, an altercation, and I'm thinking, oh, it's just me and this girl. We're just fighting. It's a normal fight in Philly. And it escalates because then she's calling her brother and other people. And so on impact, two people stood on two different sides and like kind of hit me at the same time. And it like shattered my jaw in two different places. I didn't even know my jaw was broken. I'm calling my sister, just, I'm talking through a grit teeth, but I don't realize that my jaw is broken until I get to the hospital and they're like, she's going to need emergency surgery.
Wow. And that was at 17.
Yes.
How did you accidentally, on purpose, end up in college?
Well, my counselor from South Philadelphia High, uh, got me a J number, which in my mind, I wasn't really sure what a J number was. I just said, okay, I'll take the J number. But over the course of the summer, I started getting a lot of emails from CCP. And I was like, oh, wait, I think they're asking me if I want to go to school. And coming up, I was like, I wanted a psych degree, but it was only so I could understand what happened to me. it wasn't so much as I wanted to go to school, but in this moment, I was like, well, no one's going to put a challenge in front of me. I'm not going to take. He's not going to ask me if I'm going to school, and I'm not. So I kind of was like, I'm going to school, and this is super. This is the part where it's a huge disconnect because going through school through adolescence, I was always in emotional support classes. So for myself, I never thought I could compete. I never thought I was intelligence, none of those things. And then to be in community college for 2 semesters and then get offered to come into the honors option program. And I said,
Mm.
I think you guys have the wrong person. I'm assuming that you're not this Venus. And they were like, no, it's you. We like your grades. We like your work ethic. We want you to be a part of this curriculum. And so that's kind of how I graduated from CCP, and I transitioned to Temple and went for psych.
Wow, amazing. Amazing. So where does your work career lead you?
So work career, for the past 15 years, I've been doing social work. So in Philadelphia, I've coordinated with a lot of different 501(c)s and doing book bags, haircuts, hairstyles for back to school for the disadvantaged community. I've worked with West Behavioral Health. I've taught during the pandemic. Currently, I work for a mental health facility, and I have somewhere between 60 and 70 clients who are in the same predicament I was in when I was 16, where they're either homeless or at risk of becoming homeless. And for me, that is life coming full circle because
Yeah.
I can not only offer them tools to build within their repertoire to say these are sustainable tools, but I can also strip down and say this isn't about a check. Let's really, really get you where you need to be and really care and have that compassion.
Venus, is there ever times when you're helping other children that it's a trigger for you when you have to take a step back?
That did happen to me before, because I had on my caseload a mother, a daughter. So I saw the generations, right? And for me, it triggered me because I saw my own life through these individuals who I was working so diligently to help. But people are going to get help when they're ready to get help. And that's what we have to understand, right? And so you can try to superimpose it. If they're not ready, they're not ready. You have to wait until they open their arms and say, yes, I'm ready. And at the time, it just, it was super triggering to me because I saw the things happen and everyone making the same exact mistakes. And I said, oh, I just want to break everyone away from each other so we can break this generational curse right in its foot. And it's like, it'll come to you. And lo and behold, I got the client back and they were like, I'm ready. And I said, look at that. So I did, at the moment in the core of it, I felt overwhelmed where I had to step back and say, so it's a bit much, but I was able to offer the assistance ultimately.
Was that a baby or like a teenager?
So it was generations. So it was older generations, like generations within my age range, younger
Okay.
generations than that. So then there was babies and teenagers as well. Where I saw a lot of myself in the younger generations, right? Where they all they saw were the same things happening. So that's all they knew. They couldn't break away to say, I could do something different. Right. And I
Right.
really wanted to offer them the assistance to say, we have to change this narrative.
What does the future hold for you?
A multitude of things, more books, interviews. I would like to have my own cartoon or TV show on Netflix or in some type of streaming service. I just want to be able to help and heal. And with this book, I feel like that is something that I'll be able to do in a prominent way.
Well, listen, when you make it big, I want my plane ticket and lunch on the Riviera, maybe about 2 or 3 days out of the week. I'm just saying, do not forget about me when you make it big because I will be your biggest fan. And I want you to know right here today, when your book comes out and when it's published, I will purchase the first 50 books and put them at Northwest Victim Services. So that way I can have the therapist that see children and we will give them that book free of charge.
I appreciate that, Miss Melanie. And I do believe that this book will be helpful in a clinical setting as well as with the appropriate sources. So attached with this book will be an annotated bibliography for external resources for both children and parents and caregivers and anyone with access to this book. But one special surprise for you, Miss Melanie. Drum roll. And there we have it.
Wow, that is awesome. That is awesome. I am so proud of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. I look forward to all my accomplishments being your accomplishments because we are a family now.
Yes, we are for life.
For life.
For
Thank
life.
you so much.
Thank you so much for joining me today. Please know if you have a story to tell, if you are a writer, or if you just desire for people to know who you are, please reach out to Pen Legacy, www.penlegacy, and they will help you with publishing and ghostwriting. Tell your story, tell your story, tell your story to help others. Peace and love.